Why is it necessary to erase people from history? So it seems like to me, the biggest game is the skin game, first of all. Like the first game they're going to want to play is they're going to change the skin colors. Because once they get that happening, there can be lots of fights. As everybody follows in the realm of falsehood of thinking that they understand the truth. When the truth is so deep, because of the technologies that we're dealing with, you were already initiated into a certain level of awareness. Let me show you this. So in the ancient text, it says the reason why you know that the humans are connected to the gods is that when you cut them, the cut heals. And this is the sign of their immortality. So I'll say it again, that when you cut yourself or you get hurt, your body heals. And this is the sign that you're a god, right? So this is the power that has to be manipulated, is for you to think that you're not a god because you can regenerate. So many of the people that were in those nations in those times were aware of their immortality. There needed to be a way to get them to forget that they were immortal, so that basically that you could stop fighting them, if that makes sense. So like if you went to war with a nation, but even after destroying that nation, it was like a hydra and it came back up again because it was immortal. Now you'd be fighting a bigger nation again until you could solve that quarrel. And that's the quarrel that humanity is locked in. They're locked into this prism of a quarrel taking place between vibratory frequencies. And then it's playing out in dramas. What does the ancient books say about this? What the ancient books were saying is that there became this thing where it's like what you see on the Highlander, that in order to remove somebody from ever coming back into the reality, you had to chop off their head. This is according to the Highlander movies. Also, there was this other thing about having dogs eat the bones of the ancestors to keep the person from coming back into the reality. Now remember, as an immortal, you don't only live in this reality. So there's another reality, but it would be like you would be locked out of getting back into the reality because a procedure was performed of how to stop a person from coming back into the reality. In the ancient mythos, it was to cut off its head or to have dogs eat its bones. Okay? After the awareness that, and this is a whole nother session that I have to come through with the evidence, but it's there, but that King George, King Charles, King James, and George Washington were what you would call melanated. And I'm gonna explain this. So basically that they are quote unquote what you would call black, but actually considered as white. Why? Because anybody in this time that came over from Europe, Ireland, or Scotland to what you're calling right now North America was classified in the documents as white, no matter what their skin tone was. Because you had a bunch of black Irish, black Scottish, and this is why you get pyramids inside of Ireland. You see how they got all the pyramids and all this Egyptian lore out in Ireland, and they're like, where did this come from? Oh, the Queen Cleopatra came here and then she set up a dime. So they give you all of the, hey, let's tell you a fairy tale, but they're not coming to the specifics about what the hell is going on. That in history, it's showing the secret societies as we know them, the brotherhoods and the sisterhoods, were all synchronized under one culture only until about roughly 200 to 300 years ago. And the reason why this is important is because the culture that our ancestors were initiated into was a culture that explained to you what your purpose was on earth and then unlocked your power so that you can go beyond. In fact, that the whole purpose of earth was just that. It was just basically a training ground for the afterlife. And our ancestors used it as a training ground for the afterlife. This is the truth that nobody can handle. This is what they don't want to talk about, but you can go to the ship logs. So what happens? George Washington, 6'2", swarthy or black man, is now in a full-scale war, spiritual war even, with the protector of Britain, and he's had who he's pledged his allegiance to, the king. His king, his head is chopped off. So they're fleeing to create these colonies in what was then what you're calling North America. They're fleeing to create these colonies in a place that's already fully populated with what you're calling our Aboriginal tribes, many of them also Freemasons and having lodges. What is Freemason? What is a lodge? It's basically a armory. It's a what would you call Michelle would be good at this, but it's an embattlement inside a foreign territory. It's a fortress inside of a foreign territory. So what you would see is that Masonic lodges and agreements and treaties was going all over the world because those were the actual attachment offices to the king's empire. But I'm telling you, those kings, those Germans even, were all black. But now this is where it gets interesting. They're black because their skin is dark, but if you look at them, they look white. It became a certain point that, just like you see even maybe in adrenochrome now, but to put melanin into your system from silver and other things was like, it became the thing because everybody in those societies knew that the power was coming from the sun. And the more that you could interface with the sun, with elements inside of your body, which also turned your skin dark or tan, which meant serpent, the more that you could interface into this regenerative energy, because more specifically, the skin is the serpent part of our body. It's called the derma or the dream. Okay, so the skin is the largest organ in the body. Not the heart, not when you take all the skin and put it into a pile. It's the largest organ in the body, but it's the one that's least talked about. Also, the skin, you can tell the personality, as I mentioned, of the skin. It covers everything. So you don't know about all the other organs. You just know about the skin, because the skin is like what they call the shining serpent, right? Like it's the prideful shining serpent, the skin of the coat of colors. That's your aura, everybody. But it was a practice, just like we're eating certain elements now, supplements now, that you should consume things that allow you to interface with the sun. And that was the secrets within the secret societies. And this is why you had even, again, Dravidians, Bohemians, everybody, as Benjamin Franklin said, Russians, Germans of a swarthy complexion, meaning of a darker skin tone. So you're talking about an entire, that's what I'm saying, all these brotherhoods, they were interfaced with the sun, and the sun is clearly the great serpent, or the one that can heal itself. Because remember, this gets us into the Christianity thing where Jesus can heal himself from things. The serpent, the Nehushtan, can heal itself. So for a multi-billionaire, one who controls the world, what are you worried about? Shit, when we gonna die? Because that's where we're gonna leave all this money. So for men that were initiated, that was what they got initiated for. That's the time that you're done in your life trying to chase the girls, trying to create the companies. That's why even in the Kabbalah, they don't initiate until after 40, because they're like, man, this guy, he's going to say he wants to be in, and then he's going to tell all the secrets, and he hasn't really even seen life yet. Why would we initiate him and bring him in? There has to be things that happen to you. You need the experience of life to occur for then you to say, look, I'm just trying to figure out what's going to happen to my soul.
What we are about the business now is awakening.